Howdy, my name is Nicholaou, and I work at MBS, where we get to serve Christian churches and ministries all over the United States in the field of IT. I serve as kind of an IT strategist, maybe because I've been doing IT so long. In fact, when I first began doing IT, it wasn't even called that. It was just called computer science. I kind of think the Lord invented the field of IT in part because he knew I needed it, and I do love it. My friends think that keeping up with new technology must be my greatest challenge, but it's not. I would do that as a hobby. Keeping up with new technology is not my greatest challenge. Being warm and loving while doing my job is. The CITRT leadership asked me to record this devotional based on an article I recently wrote called Keep It Personal. My hope is that this devotional will serve as a discussion starter at your roundtable and that it'll help many to love and be warm to those whom we serve even better. My church has an active small group ministry, and one of our discussion questions recently was, why is it sometimes hard to show love to those around us? The leader introduced this to the discussion as a no-brainer, and everybody laughed in agreement. So it went around the room and everybody shared and came to me, and I said, guys, I got to tell you, I really struggled with this question. In my prep, I gave it a lot of thought, and I honestly could not think of anybody who I don't show love to. I could not think of any group of folks I don't show love to. And they all died laughing. Well, then I told them that because of that, I went to my wife and told her what my conundrum was, asked her, it must be a blind spot of mine. Who don't I love? She died laughing because she was able to name very quickly a couple of groups that I don't show love to very well. And I think she's probably right. I think this is my blind spot. And I think many in IT may have the same blind spot. Well, I also recently learned that I'm an introvert. I thought I was an extrovert because I speak publicly so much. But my daughter is in college and she showed me the light. So while researching for the article on keeping it personal, I found something in the Huffington Post by Alina Hall that was helpful. She lists 10 ways introverts interact differently with the world. Here's a quick summary. Number 1, they withdraw in crowds. That's true for me. When I enter a crowded room, I don't mix and mingle. I tend to gravitate towards 2 or 3 people that I know well and spend most of my time talking with them. It's not because I don't care about the other people. I'm just not that comfortable in a crowded room full of people. Number 2, small talk stresses them out while deeper conversations keep them alive. And I think this goes a little bit with the way I deal with number 1. I would rather maintain a few close friendships rather than a bunch of shallow friendships. And so I didn't realize that was part of being an introvert, but apparently it is. Number 3, they succeed on stage, just not in the chit-chat afterwards. Well, that's why I thought I was an extrovert, because I do succeed on stage. I speak at conferences all over the country, maybe a dozen or more a year. But apparently, succeeding on stage does not make one an extrovert. In fact, it tends to go hand in hand with being an introvert. Who knew? Number 4, they get distracted easily but rarely feel bored. That's true for me. How about for you? Rabbit. Never bored, always having a good time. Number 5, they are naturally drawn to more creative, detail-oriented, and solitary careers. IT. Number 6, when surrounded by people, they locate themselves close to an exit. I never knew that was because I was an introvert, but that is kind of what I do. If I go into a conference room, I usually sit near the door. I got to work on that. Number 7, they think before they speak. I thought that was a good thing. When we were growing up, weren't we always told to do that? Think before you open your mouth. Number 8, they don't take on the mood of their environment like extroverts do. Well, the funny thing about this is I even teach a workshop where I talk to people about whether they're a thermostat or a thermometer. And the difference is a thermostat impacts the temperature of the room, whereas a thermometer only reflects it. And I suggested them that they ought to be thermostats. I didn't know I was telling them to be introverts. Who knew? Number 9, they physically can't stand talking on the phone. I don't mind talking on the phone, so that's the one that I don't on. Number 10, they literally shut down when it's time to be alone. I love my alone time. My happiest time of day is when I'm sitting in my easy chair and I can do nothing. Well, I own 9 of those, and I think many in IT may also be introverts. Zig Zigler, a famous motivational speaker, once said, "People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care." Let me say that again. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Well, then I read in John 13, verses 34 and 35, where Jesus told us, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. And by this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." Well, that means we have to love others in ways that observers would recognize and attribute to us being disciples of Jesus. That's an interesting thought. So if we need to love others in such a way that those watching us will know we are Christians, what can we do to improve how we fulfill our call to do IT in a ministry environment? Here are three things that I do, and there's probably much more that I can do, but maybe this will just kind of get things going a little bit. Number 1, make the call. Don't just rely on email. This is especially important as we are now beginning to rethink how do we use our support ticketing system at MBS. We're rethinking its role. We're redefining it as primarily the method that our clients use to notify us if they have a need. Our tendency is to want to use it as the way we help them through their need. So there are certain situations where that's appropriate, and there are some where it's not. And there's a lot of gray in between. We're just starting to navigate that. So a situation where it might be appropriate. Somebody lets us know that their email isn't flowing. So we log into their Exchange server. We find out that a required service is not running on the server. We start it up and we respond to them and say, okay, we found that the Exchange server had a service not running. We started that up, we tested it, it looks good. Please reopen the ticket if you have any further issues. I think that's an appropriate use of the support ticketing system to go back and forth with our clients. But what about the user who says, hey, I can't seem to make it communicate with my printer or whatever else the issue might be? If we respond through the support ticketing system, well, have you tried this? And they come back and say, yeah, but it didn't work. And we say, well, have you tried that? And they come back and say, yes. Then I think we're failing. That's the point at which we really should have made the phone call to help that user through their time of need and frustration. And so we're trying to figure out just where that line might be. We're trying to work through when it is and when it is not appropriate to use the support ticketing system to respond to our clients' support requests. But the tendency is to just do it through email. It's a lot easier. It's certainly a lot more efficient. Okay, the second thing that I try to do is to slow down and make the conversation personal. If I know the person I'm talking with, I ask a question about their family, their hobby, etc. If I don't know them, I at least ask them a question like, hey, how's the weather over there where you guys are? Something to get it more personal than just dealing with the IT issue at hand. And the third is to be available. I try to end every support call by asking a question like, is there anything else I can do to help you while you've got me? Usually there isn't, but on occasion there is. And if there is, then I either help them through that process or I'll begin the process to get the solution to them, maybe through another team member. So let's take a few minutes now and discuss around each of our roundtables additional methods you guys have found useful to overcome and to love those we serve so that we want to serve so well. So well, in fact, that our relationship with Jesus is obvious. Thank you.